If you've ever wondered whether foiling will really catch on, I urge you to watch this interview. Sam Ross knows a thing or two about windsurfing and foiling. He has an impressive CV. Look him up. But as lead pathway coach for British sailing team IQFoil project, he also knows a lot about how kids are getting into foiling. Ellie Cartwright interviewed him at the Youth Worlds in Oman last December. It's fascinating stuff, and we make no apologies for not painting the feature with lots of images, because it's his words that count. So if you've any doubt about where we're heading and where the next generation of sailors are coming from, watch this.
Sailing between Tokyo to now has seen the biggest change in Olympic sailing we've ever seen, and that's with the introduction of foiling. And foiling, in wind sports, water sports in general at the moment has suddenly hit a massive peak. We see the America's Cup, but we also see SailGP. But then, we see a massive spike in things like wing foiling, kite foiling, surf foiling. So if it foils, it's currently in vogue and it's really pushing the envelope of water sports. For us, if you look at, boats that were traditionally the fastest boats in Olympic sailing, things like the skiffs, so the 49er and the FX, suddenly they're not the fastest boats anymore, and they're not even the second or the third fastest boats. As you see, the windsurfers come in, the kites are hitting speeds which aren't seen in any other sailing class, and then obviously you've got the foiling NACRA as well. So there's a lot of medals. In fact, half the medals are now foiling medals, which is a massive change. And the windsurfing will look hugely different to the RSX, and the kite surfing will be something that no one's ever seen before. I think it's sometimes easier to see what's going on in the faster sports. The tactics sometimes, the racing's just as competitive and the racing's just as full on, but there's maybe a few less decisions going on around the race course, and the races are a bit quicker. I think also with things like the IQFoil, we run a multi-discipline format, so whether it be downwind slalom or marathon or course racing, or our medal series is still not fully decided, but maybe is a little bit easier to kind of grasp the concept of it if you're a non-sailor. So I think it's, the competitions we've had so far, a lot of non-sailors have really engaged in it and actually gone, I want to learn that, I want to get into that. And I think that's really exciting for Olympic sailing as a format in general. People want to go fast on the water, want to have fun and want to race their mates. I don't think that's ever changed. And whether that be, in an Ilka or something else, the best days are normally ones when you're going fastest. So I think having some faster sports just definitely keeps in track of what's happening. And I think if you look at the popularity of things like BMX, skateboarding, all those sports outside sailing at the games and how well they've done, I think having some fast foiling sports is only going to help. And if we look at the age of some of the athletes coming through, or some of the athletes I now work with, who we probably wouldn't have accessed before, and that have come into it, I think that's a really exciting opportunity. I think the bits around weight, physicality, they're really important. However, the key is in the first round of an Olympic cycle, the boat that doesn't capsize normally does pretty well. So the priority is be a good board handler and go really fast. And the other bits they come with it. So if you were the right size and right shape, but you couldn't fully foiling jibe, or you drop your tacks, or you're thinking too much about the technique to make good decisions, you're still going to be out the back of the fleet. So you still have to be the best, most adaptive sailor. You can't just be the right size, the right shape. You've got to have all the other aspects. And that's what we see, and I think this is what's most exciting. We've got people coming across from what you might call the traditional Olympic sports into these new ones and doing really, really well. But then also what we see is people coming from outside of Olympic sports and doing really well. So, it's definitely a combination of both rather than just one or the other. So there's a couple of options really, but effectively you can't go straight to the foil. But it's quite nice actually. Brands and companies are really aware of this. You take Starboard, who produced the IQFoil, their youth board, which is we use it under 19 as their youth foiling board. In fact, it's in the next World Sailing Youth Games or Youth World Championships. They've now made a version of that you can learn to windsurf on. So effectively it's the same platform, it's the same format, but rather than having a foil in it all the time, you can put a normal fin in it, you can effectively put a centre fin in it, and you can learn the basics of windsurfing. So you still have to learn the basics first, But what you can do is you can get through that quicker. You can also learn it on the same board, and then as you progress, you change the fin out, you put a foil in, and then you're suddenly foiling. And it just means that learning curve is now much quicker, there's less kit to buy, and then you've got a board that you've learnt on that's still class legal and race legal. On the kiting side, we've seen a couple of new pathways come about. So the Formula kiting equipment is obviously registered equipment, and there's quite a lot out there, and it's quite a lot of technical equipment you have to get used to. But you'd still start on a twin tip. So you'd still start by getting kite control, cruising up and down an inflatable kite. From there, you probably progress to a surfboard. And under 17 now, World Sailing have backed the youth A's equipment, which is inflatable kites and then a one design foil, just to make it a little bit easier to access. And the one design foil they've gone for is a good racing foil, but actually it's not a bad platform to learn on for the first time as well. And then from there, once you've got the board skills and once you've got into the sport, actually a transition onto the full Olympic gears isn't a giant step at all. Yeah, so if you're in the UK, you would look for, if it's kiting, you look for your nearest BKSA centre, and off you go. And they've got all the skills to get you from never having done it before and get you through the stages. If you're in the UK, you look for your nearest RWA training centre. And from there, you learn to windsurf and actually progress really quickly. And probably after that kind of first week, 2 weeks, you probably look at getting some kit, joining your local club, and off and away you go. Most other M&As have got something pretty similar going on. So you go to that kind of national authority and work out how you can get into their pathway, or how you go to your local club or school. And I think that's what's quite nice. Suddenly all the little sailing centres and kite surfing centres around the world, actually they're now really entwined with what the Olympic vision is, which is getting on the water, having fun, building up some skills, and then actually once you've got the basic skills, the transition to the foiling stuff isn't too big a step. I think the nice thing about the Olympic class now is there's sort of something for everyone. And I think we've got to be really careful to go, right, here's the new flashy, jazzy stuff that might appeal to the youth. So we've got that now. We've got the foiling windsurfing, got the foiling kiting. But then you've still got a boat like the Ilka, which has been in there for the longest out of any Olympic class, is super accessible. And you take something like the event we're at the moment, actually you look at the number of nations competing in that's really important. And being able to get yourself in an Ilka in any country in the world, there's probably one at the local beach, at a local sailing club. So I think that ability to have a bit of something for everybody and be able to hit all those different demographics and all those different countries is really important, because what's inspirational to one person might be slightly different to somebody else. But I think covering the bases is probably the key, but having the board sports in, and both of them is really good.